We are going old school Nonna vibes today for the most delicious snack that is so good you cannot imagine. Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale. Today we're making Melanzane a Pullastiello, a very Napoletano classic, something I grew up with that reminds me of my nonno. I made these a couple weeks ago and I shared the reels of it, and my dad calls me immediately, Laura, Maro, como su saborita. Like, we're just went down this like a whole rabbit hole of like stories and like memories, and it's just, I love that food can do that, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Anytime I post a really sort of like authentic to me recipe, you guys always seem to really love it. You're gonna need some, I use provolone and prosciutto. You can also use a mild hard cheese, salami, capicollo, whatever you want, like whatever cured meat that you prefer. This just happens to be what we use. You'll need some parm, you'll need eggplant, you'll need eggs, plenty of salt and pepper, some flour, not sunflower, and some oil, like light neutral oil, light olive oil. That will do. So let's get cracking the eggs. Look how I did that? You like how I did that? I'm down here, don't mind me, just in the abyss down here, as my sister would call it, looking for tools. I'm gonna crack a few eggs in a shallow bowl because we're gonna do a what we call in Naples durate fritte method, or I should say breading, right? I think 2 may be good, but let's just go ahead and do 3. Durate fritte is anything that's sort of golden brown, and that typically means that the batter or the dredging is flour and egg, no breadcrumbs. So whenever you hear durate fritte, that's typically what it means. I did the same thing with artichokes years ago. I do have a recipe on that here, and they're so good. We love them. It's delicious. So salt and pepper in the eggs, pinch of salt to the flour, and some freshly grated parm in the eggs. Whisk your eggs. I did go ahead and just stir the flour around a little bit to make sure that the salt was distributed. Now for the eggplant, you want to use eggplant that is sort of small and firm. This is probably too big for an Italian eggplant, but these are the smallest eggplants that you can find in regular grocery stores. I cut mine on a mandolin because what we're making is sandwiches, right? We're sort of stuffing 2 pieces of eggplant together. So I go ahead and I use a mandolin because you want them to be really nice and thin. This is sort of your classic eggplant. I also have, you gotta be careful, this mandolin's really old, but I promise you I'm careful. You see how they're sort of small? That's because I'm gonna layer the stuff in there. I'm gonna put the other one on top, and then we're gonna coat it and fry it. This is what is sort of known as a Sicilian eggplant, which I really like. A bit more seedy. If that bothers you, then I would stick to your regular eggplant, but they're pretty good and they're pretty wildly available. I would choose those. If you have the option of either those or the super like giant eggplant, go for those, because the bigger the eggplant, the more the seeds, the more bitter, and the more seeds, the more like mushy, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep slicing. I'm probably just gonna do this eggplant for now, and then we're gonna start the cooking process. All right, we've got the eggplant nice and sliced thin. Now there's gonna be a sort of 2-part cooking method here. You're gonna cook the eggplant slightly first before making the sandwich, because it gives the eggplant a chance to like cook all the way through, because once you sandwich it together and you sort of like batter it and fry it, it's not gonna take very long. So there's a little bit of light olive oil in a skillet, and I'm gonna do this in batches. Obviously, you do need a tiny bit of oil, but you're not deep frying at this point. I'm just gonna do 2 at a time, just because small skillet, didn't grab a big one. You know the drill. Something I do probably more than I like to admit. Oh, I love that I burned the side of that. Something I do more than I like to admit. I don't know if you're anything like me, but do you ever start cooking and then halfway through you're like, why did I not use a bigger pan? Because now it's taking me forever. Story of my life. I'm just cooking these for maybe about a minute or 2 on each side. You'll add a little bit more oil as needed. Eggplants drink water, so it's really important. I don't season mine with any salt at all, because we're stuffing the center with really salty prosciutto and provolone, and then we also have salt in our flour and the egg, and put a little pinch of salt when it comes off at the end when they're finished cooking completely. So you don't want to oversalt them. So I'm just going to keep an eye. I want them to just develop a little color and sort of soften a bit. And once I'm done with all of them, I'll show you what they look like. All the eggplant is ready. We have our station here ready to go. We've got our cheese here and our prosciutto ready to go. And I'm going to show you how to do one so that you can kind of get the idea. When it comes to home food, I mean, there's not, that one's really hot. Let's do these two that we're sitting here first. When it comes to home food, there's nothing too precious about it, right? You get the provolone. This is really good, like deli sliced provolone. You know what I'm talking about? So you just have to break it up with your hands to fit it. A lot of times, my nonna would use like whatever meats and cheeses she had on hand. Just stay away from something like a really fresh mozzarella that's been sitting in some, you know, brine or water or anything like that, just because it makes the whole thing really wet. Okay, so I'm gonna just do one so I can show you. I've got a little bit more oil in here. You take your melanzane, just like that, that's now been stuffed. You dredge each side in some flour because you now need the egg to stick to something because it's been coated with some oil. Otherwise, if you do this without the flour and just the egg egg would run right off because it was coated with oil when you cooked it, right? So now you're just gonna plunk that right in and you're gonna let that cook. And you're just gonna let that cook for maybe a minute or two on each side. I'm gonna do another one, like a minute or two on each side until they're really beautifully golden and the cheese starts melting and it does all kinds of great things. It's just phenomenal. Like I said, home food, nothing better. And these are fantastic, cold, out of the fridge for snacking the next day, or, it's gonna sound crazy, but in a sandwich. They are delicious in some crusty bread. Oh my goodness, you've got no idea. So just doing another one. I'm gonna add it right alongside and I'm just gonna cook them until nice and golden brown. This is my second batch. It's really easy to flip these just using two spatula method, and that's what you want them to look like. Let's see if this little one's ready. I'll give these two a couple more seconds. I already have one batch ready, the first two, and I started to cut into it and I was like, oh boy, I might want to have to hold off on that one, but I don't know if you can see, but the cheese is melted. Good things are happening. Some of the prosciutto that kind of seeps on the edges gets really nice and crispy. I would completely deconstruct this, but then like I would be doing a disservice to all of us because you want to keep that flavor intact. We are having a nice dinner, but I have to, just a little for you. I know that was torture for you, and I'm not even sorry. I'm not even sorry. It's that phenomenal. It's just a must make. A must make. If you grew up in Naples and you haven't had this recipe in a really long time, I hope that this kind of brings back a lot of good memories. It inspires you to get in the kitchen, cook for yourself, cook for your family, make the kind of recipes that makes your Papa style give you a call. Loud, Mamma Mia! I'm gonna tell you that, those are the best phone calls. The ones that struck right here. I probably just said the mic, but you know what I'm saying. The ones that struck right in the heart. It's a different phone call to the, ooh, that looks so delicious. It hits different. Go to LauraInTheKitchen.com for the written recipe. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me. Ci vediamo alla prossima.